You've heard this story 100 times. Germany was humiliated in World War I. The Treaty of Versailles crushed them, and Hitler was the inevitable result. But that version of history makes one massive mistake, and lets the real culprits off the hook. This video unpacks what actually broke Germany after World War I, and why blaming Versailles alone could be a dangerous game. Because if we keep telling the wrong story, we risk missing the signs next time. We get it. Germany was bullied after World War I. So let's look into what actually happened. 1 year after the end of World War I, Germany signs the Treaty of Versailles. That whole time they've been negotiating with Britain, France and the USA. Britain and France have a huge amount of debt from the war. Britain cares more about recovering its economy instead of purely punishing Germany. They need to stop the USA overtaking their mighty empire's financial might. France wants revenge. Huge reparation figures are mentioned. Figures everyone knows Germany cannot pay. France and Belgium is where most of the fighting took place. The people want money to rebuild their villages, their towns, their roads. They want their lives back. Beaten down by their enemies, Germany agrees to the deal. Ferdinand Foch, the French general who signed the armistice with Germany in 1918, described the outcome as, "This is not a peace, it is an armistice for 20 years. And guess what? World War II started almost 21 years later. So he was basically right. Keynes, the titan of an economist, also hated it, that it was against everyone's interests. That's a pretty damning thing to say, eh? So what was so bad about it? How much did Germany have to pay? 132 billion gold marks. That number is big in 1920s money. But the worst was still to come. Now that the ink had dried on the treaty, Germany spiraled out of control. We complain about inflation in the last few years. And to be clear, it's not been fun. What about hyperinflation? Your savings are good one day and worthless the next. While in line to buy something, the price changes twice, 3 times. Yep, that's what Germany had in early 1923. And it's easy to see a link between this and the treaty, right? But what it misses is the state of the German economy at the end of the war. During the final years of the war, Britain had carried out a brutal blockade of Germany. Not much could get in or out. Starvation and disease were common. By 1923, 750,000 Germans had died from hunger, although this figure is disputed. Even ignoring the human costs, the economic costs were huge. Pre-war Germany had an exceptional export economy. In the lead up to the war, Germany produced more steel than Britain, France and Russia combined, and was generally stronger in manufacturing than anyone. But even after losing Silesia and the Saarland as part of the treaty, areas vital for coal and steel, they still made 3 times more steel and coal than France after the war. So the German economy was doing okay in the first few years of the treaty being in effect. Sure, the initial reparation payments Germany made didn't help the situation. They often tried to minimize their payments by hook or by crook over the years. But I'm guessing that hasn't convinced you yet. What about if we compare it to other similar treaties? Maybe even a treaty between Germany and France just 50 years before. This is the Treaty of Frankfurt, and it was signed between Prussia and France in 1871 after the Franco-Prussian War, one of the prequels to World War I. France lost badly, and Prussia, soon to be Germany, imposed the following on them. They had to pay 5 million gold francs over 3 years. Converting that into 1919 money, the same year the Treaty of Versailles was agreed, it comes out as 20 billion gold marks. Open and shut case, right? 20 billion is less than 132 billion by like a lot. But that's just the very surface level comparison. Let's look at the detail here. That 132 billion gold mark figure is a bit misleading. The Allies knew that Germany would be unlikely to be able to pay that much. The minimum they hoped for was 50 billion. That's what they thought Germany could pay. The rest was only if Germany could pay more. Germany had pretty much offered the exact same amount as negotiations began, so the figure isn't that controversial. So in short, the 20 billion that France had to pay was 40% of the 50 billion Germany had to pay. Still looks bad, right? Except Germany had 36 years to pay it back. France had 3. And France paid it back in full. Theoretically, the French reparations were to cover Germany's war costs, and they more than paid those back. Germany made a profit from the Franco-Prussian War. No one makes profits from wars. France, Britain, Russia and the USA made a loss from World War I reparations. It wasn't even close. They didn't even try to make their money back in full. It was unrealistic. So hopefully you can see that the treaty wasn't that harsh, especially not in its intentions. Everyone knew this was a realistic amount to cover the damage that had been done to Belgium and northern France, and for some of the many war crimes carried out by Germany. And let's not forget, Germany wasn't the only central power in the war. The treaties of Trianon and Sèvres were actually harsher. They broke up 2 empires, the Austro-Hungarian and the Ottoman empires, and created several new countries, some of which were created in such a chaotic way that we've still not resolved the issues caused by them today. Hungary lost 72% of its pre-war territory. The Ottoman Empire became Turkey and lost a lot of territory, but certain genocides of the Armenian variety got in the way of the full Treaty of Versailles being implemented. What little territory Germany did lose as a result of Versailles was actually a huge let-off in comparison to what happened to their allies. So when looking at the treaty in comparison to other treaties, either ones that came from the same war or that were equivalent in terms of scale, it's really not that bad. If anything, largely because US President Wilson didn't want to be as harsh as the French, so Germany got off easy. Okay, but even with all that, there's a 12-year gap between the reparations starting to be paid and the rise of Hitler. Surely this can only have helped him come to power? As the years progress, Germany is unstable, both financially and politically. But Germany by 1929 was relatively stable. And that very year, a minor local event called the Wall Street crash happened, which led to the Great Depression. This trashed the German economy. It trashed much of the world economy. The conditions in Germany were rife for something major to happen. The idea of Versailles in the public mind was large, far larger than the actual effects were. It was the boogeyman, their scapegoat. Adding to this idea was the conspiracy theory of Germany losing World War I and being forced into the Treaty of Versailles because the Jews had stabbed them in the back. As so often in history, the Jews of Germany were being used as a scapegoat. This is Matthias Erzberger, one of the lead negotiators of the treaty. He was assassinated in 1921 as a direct result of being associated with the treaty. He was Jewish, and the conspiracy grew and grew. And guess which future dictator bought into this hook, line and sinker? Hitler. He took this idea and the idea that the treaty was the problem with the country and rode it all the way to power. But make no mistake, the actual economic harm of the Depression saw Nazi power grow rapidly, along with some idiotic German politicians who didn't see the obvious danger he would cause and allowed him to gain power. That danger would be lethal to Jews and many, many others in the world in the years to come. It's easier to blame a piece of paper than admit who really let it happen. Hitler just jumped on it as an excuse for why Germany was in trouble. If we tell the wrong story, we teach the wrong lessons, and next time we might not get a second chance. So this has been a really high-level look at why the treaty really wasn't harsh, but let me know what you think. I'm genuinely interested in a good faith discussion on this. So let me know in the comments. Despite how weak Germany became after the war, during the war they were super strong, taking fewer losses than the Allies, holding loads of territory. And yet, all of a sudden in 1918, they went from looking unbeatable to defeated within a few months. Why was that? Watch this to find out.